The North Atlantic, November 1st, 1943. It is 1 o'clock in the morning. The ocean here is not merely a battlefield, it is a hostile entity. 15-foot waves crash against steel hulls in a rhythmic, violent cadence driven by a storm that turns the sea into a chaotic abyss. In this freezing darkness, visibility is practically zero. To the human eye, the world is nothing but black water and black sky. But in this era of warfare, eyes are no longer the primary tool of the hunter. Cutting through the tempest is the USS Borie. She is on the hunt. Commanding this vessel is Lieutenant Charles Harris Hutchins. At only 30 years old, he bears the heavy burden of command in one of the most unforgiving theaters of war. The Borie is searching, scanning the electronic spectrum for the signature of a German U-boat. Suddenly, the silence of the bridge is broken by the cold precision of technology. A radar contact appears. Range, 8,000 yards. Bearing, 170. Hutchins does not hesitate. In the chess game of naval warfare, speed is life. He orders the ship to flank speed, turning hard to intercept. The destroyer's engines scream as they push the vessel through the towering waves, closing the distance on an unseen enemy. 5 nautical miles away sits the object of their pursuit, U-405. This is a Type 7C U-boat, the workhorse of the German Kriegsmarine. Under the command of Korvettenkapitän Rolf Heinrich Hauptmann, the submarine is currently in its most vulnerable state. To understand the peril Hauptmann faces, we must understand the mechanics of the World War II diesel-electric submarine. While these vessels are deadly predators underwater, they rely on battery power to operate submerged. These massive banks of batteries have a limited lifespan. Eventually, every U-boat must rise to the surface, exposing itself to the open air to run its diesel engines and recharge. At this moment, U-405 is surfaced. It is blind in the darkness, but it is not deaf. Deep within the steel belly of the U-boat, a hydrophone operator listens to the ocean's soundscape. Amidst the crash of waves, he distinguishes a specific, terrifying rhythm, the cavitation of high-speed propellers. The report goes to the captain immediately. A high-speed ship is bearing down on them. Hauptmann assesses the situation instantly. There are no friendly vessels in this sector. The approaching sound can only be an American destroyer. The order to dive screams through the iron hull. The alarm bells ring, a sound that triggers a primal rush of adrenaline in the 45 crew members. They scramble to battle stations, sealing hatches and venting ballast tanks to slip beneath the waves before the hunter arrives. Back on the USS Borie, the radar screen suddenly goes blank. The contact is lost. For Hutchins, this disappearance confirms the nature of his target. A radar blip that vanishes is a submarine that has submerged. The hunt now shifts from the airwaves to the water itself. The Borie slows to half speed. Radar is useless against a submerged target. Now they must rely on sonar. Sonar technology works by emitting a pulse of sound, a ping, that travels through the water. If it hits a solid object, it echoes back. By measuring the time it takes for the echo to return, operators can calculate distance. But in a storm of this magnitude, the water is filled with noise and turbulence, making the sonar operator's job incredibly difficult. Suddenly, a return, a solid contact at 2,000 yards. Hutchins maneuvers the Borie to intercept. Below the surface, the German hydrophone operator listens as the American propeller noise grows louder, accompanied by the regular, haunting pulse of the sonar. The destroyer is closing in. The Borie closes to 600 yards. The crew on the deck brave the freezing spray, readying the depth charge racks on the port side. Depth charges are essentially underwater bombs, set to detonate at specific depths. The goal is not necessarily to hit the submarine directly, but to create a hydraulic shockwave so powerful that it cracks the submarine's pressure hull. But the U-boat is elusive. The sonar trace shifts. U-405 has performed a desperate maneuver, slipping directly beneath the Borie's keel. Hutchins counters, swinging the ship hard to starboard, exposing the rear of the ship to the submarine's position. Fire! The order is given. The heavy canisters of high explosives are launched into the turbulent sea. They sink, and moments later, the ocean erupts. The physics of a depth charge attack are brutal. Water is incompressible, meaning the shock wave from the explosion travels with devastating efficiency. Inside U-405, the world violently shakes. The blast hammers the bow. The report comes in to Captain Hopman, flooding in the bow. This is a critical turning point. A submarine relies on carefully balanced buoyancy. Uncontrolled flooding at depth is a death sentence. The water pressure will simply crush the hull if they sink too low. Hopman realizes he has lost the option of stealth. He has only one card left to play. He orders the submarine to surface and man the guns. On the Borie, the sailors are watching the roiling water where the charges exploded. Suddenly, the sea breaks apart. The massive gray shape of U-405 breaches the surface right at the destroyer's stern. Hutchins orders the searchlight turned on. The beam cuts through the dark, illuminating the U-boat in stark, blinding white light. It reveals a scene of frantic activity. Dozens of German sailors are pouring out of the hatches, rushing toward their deck guns. They know that if they cannot disable the destroyer, they will die. The engagement that follows transforms from a technological hunt into a brutal, close-quarters brawl. The Germans man their 20mm anti-aircraft guns and open fire. Tracer rounds streak through the night, slamming into the Borie's hull and superstructure. American sailors dive for cover as shrapnel tears across the deck. The German crew is fighting with extraordinary discipline in the face of overwhelming odds. They are attempting to ready their 88mm deck gun. This weapon fires a heavy, armor-piercing shell capable of sinking the Borie. If they can bring it to bear, the hunter will become the prey. Hutchins sees the danger. He orders all guns to local control. The Borie's 20mm cannons find their range. The first salvos miss, but the gunners correct their aim. A storm of shells sweeps across the U-boat's deck. The German gun crews are devastated. Yet, as one man falls, another steps over him to man the gun. It is a grim testament to their training, but it is futile. The Borie's main battery, the 4-inch guns, joins the fight. These are heavy naval rifles. A shell slams directly into the U-boat's forecastle, obliterating the 88mm gun and its crew. The heavy weaponry of the U-boat is gone, but the vessel itself remains afloat. Hutchins realizes that gunfire alone might not be enough to sink the rugged German sub quickly enough. He makes a decision that harkens back to the era of ancient naval warfare. He orders the helmsman to ram. "Stand by for a ram." The warning echoes through the ship. The Borie accelerates to 27 knots, a steel arrow aimed at the heart of the enemy. The collision is massive. The destroyer crashes into the side of U-405, buckling the submarine's plating. The two vessels are now locked together in a metallic embrace, grinding against one another in the heavy swells. What happens next is almost unique in the history of modern naval combat. As the ships are pinned together, the distance between the combatants is measured in feet, not miles. The battle devolves into a small-arms firefight. American sailors on the elevated deck of the destroyer look down upon the exposed deck of the submarine. They grab whatever weapons are at hand: Tommy guns, pistols, rifles. In the chaos, men are even throwing empty shell casings and knives at the enemy. The Germans fight back from the slippery, wave-washed deck of the U-boat, but they are exposed and outgunned. The defenders on the deck are neutralized. Despite the carnage, U-405 refuses to die. The submarine pulls away, straining its engines to separate from the Borie. Captain Hopman, his crew decimated, attempts to flee into the darkness. On board the Borie, the situation is dire. The ramming maneuver has damaged the destroyer's hull. Chief Engineer Kenneth Miles Lucas is deep in the bowels of the ship, fighting a losing battle against the incoming Atlantic. water is gushing into the engine spaces. Lucas and his team are working in waist-deep water, keeping the turbines spinning through sheer will, ensuring the ship doesn't lose power. Hutchins tries to deliver the final blow. He orders a torpedo attack. The torpedo splashes into the water, tearing a path toward the U-boat, but it misses. Hopman, seeing the Borie wounded, attempts a counterattack. He turns the U-boat, bringing his own torpedo tubes to bear. Hutchins responds with a stroke of psychological brilliance. He orders the searchlight extinguished. The Borie vanishes into the darkness. Hopman, believing the Americans have lost contact or suffered a power failure, sees a chance to escape. He aborts his torpedo run and turns to starboard, hoping to slip away. But the Borie has not lost contact. Her radar is still tracking the enemy perfectly. As the U-boat exposes its broadside, Hutchins springs the trap. "Enable searchlight!" The light blazes back to life, revealing U-405 directly ahead. Hutchins orders a second ram. The Borie charges. Hopman manages a nimble turn, avoiding a direct collision, but he cannot escape the Borie's starboard side. As the destroyer swings past, Hutchins plays his final card. He orders a spread of depth charges, fired from the starboard racks. The canisters splash into the water mere feet from the U-boat. The resulting explosions are catastrophic. The hull of U-405 is breached beyond repair. The submarine begins to wallow, defeated. A flare shoots up from the conning tower, the universal signal of surrender. The silence that follows the roar of battle is haunting. 15 survivors, including Captain Hopman, drag themselves into life rafts. The battle is over. The Borie maneuvers to pick up the survivors, a gesture of mercy common among mariners, even enemies. But the war is not done with them yet. A lookout on the Borie screams a warning. A flare is spotted in the distance, followed by the telltale wake of an incoming torpedo. The crew assumes a second German submarine has arrived to avenge its comrade. Hutchins has seconds to act. He must protect his ship and his crew. He orders a hard turn to present a smaller target to the torpedo. The maneuver saves the Borie, but it seals the fate of the Germans in the water. The destroyer's hull plows through the area where the life rafts are floating. In the darkness and confusion, with a torpedo inbound, rescue is impossible. The Borie is forced to steam away. The survivors of U-405 are left alone in the freezing Atlantic darkness. None will be seen again. The USS Borie won the duel, but she lost the war for survival. The damage from the ramming and the waves proved too great. Chief Engineer Lucas and his men kept the engines running until the water reached their chests, but the ship was mortally wounded. The crew was forced to abandon ship. While rescue ships eventually arrived, the unforgiving sea claimed 27 of the Borie's crew. This engagement stands as a testament to the ferocity of the Battle of the Atlantic. It was a conflict where technology and primitive combat instincts collided in the dark, where victory was often Pyrrhic, and where the ocean itself was the ultimate victor.